Bichara Supply Chain, highlighting and showcasing solutions for the most complex challenges facing the industry in 21st century by our team of subject matter experts and mentors. Broadcasting every week, all year round, we will present the most up-to-date series of podcasts and webinars.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Bichara Supply Chain. This is Nur Hadi, your host, and I'm speaking now with Susan. She is an expert in spend data classification, taxonomies, and data accuracy. Susan is also founder of the Classification Guru. Thanks for coming, Susan, and welcome to Bichara Supply Chain.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Great. So today's topic is building a data strategy for procurement. But before that, can you please brief a bit about yourself and what do you do at the Classification Guru?
Certainly. So I worked for many years for a spend analytics company. And while I was there, I discovered that every single set of data that came in through the door was in a bad way. If it had been classified already, it was misclassified, it might not have been normalized, and I saw an opportunity to offer a service of purely just classifying and cleansing supplier data, not doing the analytics part. So I specialise in spend data classification. I work with a number of taxonomies. I can also customise taxonomies for my clients, and I normalise the suppliers for them as well. In addition to that, I also work with organisations to help them cleanse their databases. So deduplication and making sure that the addresses are in the correct columns, and just making sure that people are working more efficiently and saving some time and some money.
Awesome. So I wanted to ask something about the data itself, Susan, where globally it's very much true the majority of procurement organizations are still facing a lack of the right data. So what is your view on this? How do you see the importance of data strategy in a procurement's role?
So the first thing I'd like to say is that quite often organisations will say their data is bad or they have lack of the right data. And that isn't always the case. Sometimes the information that they need is there. It's just not been organised in a way that they can access it. So, for example, if procurement wanted to know how many suppliers we have, we're buying office supplies from, you may or may not know that because you may not have classified your data, and you may not know that you are spending that much on office supplies. You might only know from a GL description that it's sitting under office equipment, for example. So by looking at what you want to achieve, you can add or manipulate your data in a different way to get that information. So I think it's really important to just say it's not always wrong, it's just not organised in the right way. But in terms of its importance, it is vital. It drives, having accurate data drives everything. You will be making decisions on that data. So you'll be making decisions on things like the number of suppliers that you have per category, the amount of money you're spending with each supplier, whether you're compliant with the agreement with that supplier. You can check whether your staff are buying on or off contract, and that is all down to having accurate data. Also things like checking if you're being charged the correct pricing, having a look at whether pricing has changed over a period of time. That is, or per product. You can do all of that as long as you have accurate and classified data.
Okay, so I would like to bring up another fact that's the procurement team actually are source of the rich data. So that's the procurements can play a central role in the data transformation of the company. So what advice can you offer to the procurement leaders on how to build a more clean and more structured data? So what is your thought on this?
So at the moment, Many different departments within the same organisation will be working on their own data sets. So procurement will have their own data. You might have sales that have a different set of data. You might have marketing that have a different set of data. And then even IT might have their own set. So the most important thing that you should really think about is having a holistic view of your data from the whole organisation. And that's really important because from a procurement perspective, if you have access to the sales and marketing data, you can look at when there's any promotions planned, for example. So you might want to factor that into your buying. That might lead to buying a larger than normal amount of a certain product, and that might lead to a better cost price. So you could effectively save some money. But if you don't know what the sales and marketing department are doing, they might promote a certain product, for example, and then you might sell out of that product, and then you need to buy more raw materials to make that product. But there's an issue with the supply of those raw materials, and it can, it's a chain effect. So if you can look at everything that's going on, it can really improve the whole functioning and process of the whole organization.
Yeah. So then what exactly the key success factors in building a data strategy?
So for me, I don't advise on data strategies, but from my perspective, it is all about accuracy. So without data accuracy, your strategy isn't worth anything.
Yeah.
You should always start with the end in mind. So, for example, if you know that you want to report or have some analytics on how many keyboards within an organization you've bought, you have to have that information in your data. So if you know that the end is to track keyboards, you can build that into the data collection at the very start of the process. So the first thing you would want to look at is your supplier marking down that you're buying keyboards on the invoice? Because if it's not on the invoice, you can't record it. So you want to make sure that information is there. If you have that information, you then need to make sure that you're classifying it correctly. So it's no good to just classify it as IT or IT peripherals or IT hardware or IT accessories. You need to have it classified as a keyboard so that you can track that. But the only way that you're going to know that you need that in your data is if you start with the end in mind. And then it's really important, again, as I was saying, to work with the whole organisation. You get IT involved. You have the product knowledge to be able to classify and work with the data, but they have the technical knowledge to be able to run scripts or automate some of the process of classifying. So by working together, you get a really good process and you're saving some time, and then that data could be useful for the rest of the organisation as well. And getting everybody involved. So it's everybody's responsibility to work with data. Mine, yours, the CEO, we all need to be responsible for the data we're working with, and we all need to make sure that it's accurate, and if it's not, we need to do something about it.
Yeah. Okay, so this is also very interesting that the many leaders say that the future of procurement is data driven. So do you think any correlations between building a data strategy, which what we are talking about?
So there is, but I would say it's wider than just procurement. I think every part of the business is being data driven. And again, it's going back to getting the whole organisation involved. So make sure that, if you can use the IT department to help you, get them to do some stuff. Check what's happening with sales and marketing and promotions, make sure that you're buying in what you need, make sure the data is accurate, and that's, again, everybody's responsibilities. So being data driven is not just an organisation thing, it's a people thing as well. So everyone on your team should be data driven as well. Now, it can be really intimidating for people to work with data or spreadsheets. They might not do it very often. So it's really important to get people engaged from an early stage, make it less intimidating, give them some training, get them working with IT, and get everybody involved to drive that forward. But like I said, it's all about accuracy. So those decisions that you're making should be based on accurate data. An example I like to use quite frequently is IBM. I once classified a file, and they had some IBM hardware classified as cleaning services, and it had never been spotted. Mm-hmm. So, there was cleaning services assigned to IBM. That meant that somewhere the organisation thought they were spending more on cleaning services than they were. And then in another part of the organisation, they thought they were spending less on IT than they actually were. So it can have a real knock-on effect. And those numbers were getting rolled up and reported to maybe the CPO, maybe even the CEO, and nobody noticed.
Yeah.
So again, when you're data-driven, it's not just about doing it at the start. It's about maintaining that data and continuing to maintain that data on an ongoing basis. And again, that involves everybody.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So before we close the conversation, do you still any other thoughts or other advice that you would like to share with our listener?
Yeah, so just accurate data. That is the most important thing. And it doesn't have to be intimidating or scary. You can do it on a very basic level, but it is so important. And again, just start with the end in mind. What does your manager or your CEPO, your CEO want to see in a report? And what do you need to report? And then you can make sure that that is factored into the data when you're building the process. And communicate with your organisation. And I always say your data should have a quote on. So it should be consistent, it should be accurate, it should be organised, it should be accurate, and it should be trustworthy. And if you have those things with your data, then your organisation will have faith in it and people will use it more.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So thanks again, Sarah, for sharing with us and coming to Bicara Supply Chain.
My pleasure.
At Bicara Supply Chain, we are committed to driving global perspective to embrace technological adaptation in improving process efficiencies. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share Bicara Supply Chain. And stay tuned for the latest updates. To learn more, visit our website www.bicharasupplychain.com. Thank you for listening to us. We look forward to seeing you at our next episode.